flight anyway. Oh, a little bit. Come and take a seat in the forward cabin with me, please. Right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on board this flight from Manchester to Manchester. And Concorde's so fast, we'll have been there and come back before you realise. No, there's a couple of things about Concorde. This aircraft was built for speed, and it was also built for luxury travel. Okay, we'll quickly talk about the speed first. This aircraft normally travels at 1,350 miles an hour, which is basically 1 mile every 2 seconds. Now, just to give you some idea how quick that is, I live 45 miles away from the airport. If I'm lucky tonight when I finish, it'll take me 45 minutes to get home. But if I went in Concorde, I'd be home in 90 seconds. Yeah? And believe it or not, in the time you sat on board this aircraft, you could actually fly all the way to London and come back again. All right? It would only take 6 minutes to get to London. And if you've ever been to the likes of Tenerife or Cyprus on holiday, where it takes you 4.5 hours, on Concorde, it would only take you 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's all it would take you to fly on Concorde. So basically, and as a result of that, you could get across the Atlantic in something like 3 hours 20, 3 hours 50, whereas the jumbo jet would more or less take twice that time there. But you were paying for the privilege of flying supersonic. So if you flew on a jumbo jet, you would pay one price. If you flew on Concorde, you would pay nearly double the price you would pay on a jumbo jet or a 777. Anybody any idea how much it used to cost to fly on Concorde? Has anybody flown on Concorde? You have? Have you got rich parents then? Yeah. Basically, a one-way ticket would cost you £3,800. A return ticket in 2003 was basically cost you £8,000. So you'd pay double what you'd pay on some of the slower aircraft there. A lot of business people flew on Concorde because they went out there in the morning, did the business, and came back on a later flight during the day there. I think it was something like 1 in 5 of the people who flew on the early morning flight came back in the day, which was a good thing really, because unfortunately for Concorde is there are only 2 small luggage holes on Concorde. So if all the passengers on here turned up with a 20-kilogram suitcase, we wouldn't get them all in the hole. And you can't put them in here because these are very, very small. I mean, those of you who have flown with the likes of Ryanair and EasyJet and Jet2 with your little suitcase, and you've got on board, you're there trying to struggle to shut this, there's no way you would close these. They would make you put all your luggage into the hole there. Now, as to regard to comfort, on Concorde there are 100 seats. That's all you've got here. You've got 40 in this forward compartment here. You've got another 60 in the back there. You've got a galleys here. So where you came on board the aircraft is the forward galley, and you've got another galley right at the back of the aircraft there, which is a lot bigger there. And to give you some idea of the luxury that they're trying to sort of impress on you, each of these seats you're sitting in cost £7,000 each to manufacture in 2000 after the Paris air crash, and they are covered with a substance called Connolly ink blue leather. All right, and this is the same material that you will find lying in the inside of a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce motor car. So you can see they are trying to actually impress on you this actual luxury here. Now, as regards to meals on Concorde, if we were in flight now, we were taking off, one of the first things, once you got to 3,000 feet and the cabin crew were released, they would come round with a glass of champagne for the adults. You'd have to make do with lemonade, all right? Yeah. And then while you're really savouring this champagne, they would then come round with a meal tray. Now, when you finish the tour and you're going out, if you look in the glass cabinet as you're going out, there's a tray laid out there and there's some menus, all right? And then what would happen is they would come round and it would be silver service as if you're eating in a 5-star restaurant. So they'd come round and they'd come to Madam here and they'd say, what would you like? Oh, smoked salmon. Yeah, sure enough. Come over here. fish fingers and chips. Would serve like tomato sauce or brown sauce with them. Yeah? And that's the sort of service you get. Now, because business people flew on Concorde on a regular basis, the menus were changed every week because they did not want business people to go to another airline because they got fed up of the same food on Concorde. Because if you flew with the ordinary airlines, nobody works for an airline here, do they? No, you're not admitted it if you do. You might have a congealed chicken curry in a foil container, and if you flew with the airline 6 months later, they were still offering the same congealed chicken curry. They didn't do that on Concorde. They changed it every week. And the wines you got on Concorde were not the cheap ones you get in Aldi's or Morrison's. Yeah, 6 bottles for the price of 4. No, they didn't do that. These were the top of the range wines, and the wine list was changed every month. Okay, the reason being, let me give you an example about one business person called Fred Finn. You might have seen some of the Concorde documentaries, and he's on that. He's coming here next month to give a talk during the 50 years of Concorde. During the 27 years that Concorde was operational, he actually flew on Concorde 718 times. And in 1 year alone, he actually flew on Concorde 78 times. He became well known with the cabin crew that if they saw him on the passenger list, they put a bottle of champagne in his seat for when he got on board there. And that's the sort of thing there. But who flew on Concorde? Well, I presume you're all poor like me, yeah? Unless you went on one of the British Caledonian. Every so often, Manchester here used to lease a Concorde for the day. And for £320, they would take you out over Ireland, let you experience supersonic flight and bring you back. Otherwise, if you pay full passenger fares, it would cost you something like about £8,000 for a return ticket. However, having said that, I do have some people who come on tours and they came on Concorde as part of a package. So one lady told me for £1,600 she flew to New York on Concorde, had 2 nights in New York, and then came back on an ordinary airliner for £1,600. And I think another lady for £2,000 told the cost of her. She went from Heathrow to New York, spent a night in New York, and then came back on the QE2 for £2,000. I think they must have had some really, really good deals there. But who used to fly on Concorde? Well, our late Queen Elizabeth II, flew on Concorde quite regularly. And if she was ever on any of the Concordes, she would always be given seat 1A. So this lad here would have been in trouble. Yeah? The late Duke of Edinburgh always had seat 2D. And then some of the other royals that used to fly on Concorde was the Queen's late mother, what we call the Queen Mother. Apparently what she used to do was ask for a gin and tonic that was her favourite tipple, and then wander off to the flight deck and sit there talking to the flight deck crew while drinking their gin and tonic. And the late Princess Diana was also a regular traveller on Concorde. So you're in trouble. Right? I always have trouble with children sitting in the Queen's seat. I'll tell you a few funny stories. I had one lad sitting there, he must have been about 4 or 5, and his mum sat next to him, and I said to him, "You're in trouble." He said, "Why?" I said, "You're sitting in the Queen's seat." He said, "So?" I said, "If the Queen got on board now, she'd be upset to find you sitting in her seat." And his reply to me, without any pause, was, "She'll have to find somewhere else to sit then, won't she?" But another lad sitting there, and his mum and dad sat here, and I said the same thing to him. "You're in trouble for sitting in the Queen's seat." He never said a word to me. He just picked up his carrier bag, walked down the aircraft and sat in one of the empty seats further down the aircraft. And I says, "What have you done that for?" He said, "I don't want to upset the Queen." I said, "Don't be silly, the Queen's not going to get on board today." He said, "You never know." But no, that's the sort of thing. It's the same as we were just talking earlier on. We've had a couple of packs of scouts on board. I remember when we had a pack of brownies on here not so long ago. We were talking about the Queen sitting here, and one of the brownies sitting down there put a hand up to ask a question, and basically she asked me, did Queen Victoria like travelling on Concorde? I was very tactful with the young lady and said no, Queen Victoria must prefer travelling by train. Does anybody have any questions? Any challenging questions? Yeah? I mean, we had a lot of other people. For example, this gentleman here is sitting in the seat that Michael Jackson...
Excuse me, Bob.
What?
With 3 late arrivals, they can't do the later one, so I've told them there's only going to be like 5 minutes.
Well, they're coming off shortly.
Yeah, I know, I've told them that, but they're just briefly going to have a look on board.
Well, all they can do is then, if
They know.
well, we could stick them on the classic.
Well,
But
no,
they won't go to the cockpit though.
No, but no, they've said they're just happy to do 5 minutes on board. Okay, these guys, so this is my colleague Bob. Just got a few minutes on board, I'm afraid. Okay.
5 minutes and we're going off.
Okay. Okay, cheers.
Sorry.
No, they know that. We offered him the later one.
Okay, so any questions at all? None. You're all very shy. Yeah? No, I'm talking about Michael Jackson sitting here, wasn't I? A lot of the famous people that flew on Concorde always like their favourite seats, okay? And for some reason or other, Michael Jackson always wanted to reserve 2D. I don't know why, yeah? And he always bought the seat next to him as well, because he didn't want anybody sitting next to him apparently during the flight, making small talk. Apparently he just wanted peace and quiet. And cabin crew that have flown with him have basically said that he used to go in here, get a blanket, wrap himself in the blanket and sleep through the whole flight. He wouldn't talk to any of you or eat anything during the flight there. So at the end of the tour, hopefully it will have rubbed off, and this gentleman here will give us an example of the moon dance.
I doubt it.
No, I mean, for example, he sat there. If you know about Bill Clinton, he liked flying on Concorde. He basically liked to sit in the middle of the forward galley here. And somebody asked us a question the other week about Beyonce when she was a bit younger and she was flying on Concorde. Where did she sit? But a couple of the guys who used to work for British Airways customer services did a bit of research and they found out she liked to sit in row 4. I don't know which seat in row 4, but why she wanted to sit in particular on row 4. And you still got no questions? Oh yes, there's a hand going up here. I hope it's not a difficult one.
Where did Princess Diana sit?
Where did
Princess Diana sit?
where did it fly?
No.
Princess Diana, did she have her own seat?
Like, did she like to sit in a certain seat?
Who's this?
Princess
Princess
Diana.
Diana.
Princess Diana. Normally somewhere about here. You could be sitting in the same seat she's sitting in.
How many Concorde were there?
20.
20.
Yeah. 2 prototypes, 4 pre-production, and 14 what we call production. This is a production Concorde. If you ever go down the southwest of England and you go to Yeovil, the Fleet Air Arm Museum in Yeovil, you will see the prototype of Concorde, and you will be surprised it's a bit smaller than this one. It's very much the same as the Supersonic jet, passenger jet, they are building in the States at the moment, okay? They are building 2 small prototypes just to see that they've got their aerodynamics right. I mean, this new jet, Supersonic jet, the Americans are building, they're hoping it will go into service in 2028. In England, I believe Virgin Atlantic have provisionally ordered 8 of these supersonic jets. It's a bit like Concorde, but a bit more sleek looking. And that's what we got there. Go on.
Has this one ever been in the air? Like flying from
Has it ever been?
in the air?
No. No. Any other questions? None.
Can we see the stuff?
There's not much in it. Not much in it.
Just curious.
What will work now? Let's stop now. You'd have a job to get a suitcase in there. They are very, very. All you will get in there is a flat briefcase and your coat. If you came on board here with your little suitcase, yeah, your little penguin suitcase, and tried to put that in there, you would have a job to shop them. This is why on Concorde all luggage had to go in the hold. And there's only 2 small holes here. There's one under the toilets there, yeah. So I don't know whether if you find out the toilets are leaking when your suitcase is wet, yeah. And there's also another one in the tail of the aircraft. You've only got 2 small areas for putting Concorde. It did regularly happen that they couldn't get all the luggage on board, and it had to follow you on later on. And there's very, very small holes here.
So
Any other questions?
Could the Queen have actually sat in that same chair?
Well, do you know what? No, do you know what?
Concorde?
These 2 guys that used to work for British Airways actually looked to see if there's any documentation to prove that the Queen sat in that seat, and there's no evidence that proved that she actually sat on that aircraft here. I mean, there was one article in the Manchester Evening News when we were doing a bit of research that said she used this aircraft to come back. Was it the Silver, 25 years on the throne, coming back from Barbados to Heathrow. But further investigation, it wasn't G-BOAC, it was G-BOAC. So we can't actually say for definite that she sat on here. Okay, then you're all done.
And from
Didn't take any.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, loads.
Take some of the cockpit.
Yeah. Take another one.
Ollie.
You've all got your possessions with you. Don't leave any car keys, any children on board the aircraft. They will be put in lost property. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this brief visit. If you'd like to follow me off the aircraft. Okay, thank you.
Just wait, we'll take the picture.